Wisconsin Eye's 2014 election coverage is brought to you by the Wisconsin Hospital Association. For over 90 years, a valued voice for Wisconsin hospitals, supporting high-quality, high-value care in communities like yours.
Wisconsin Eye is at the Milwaukee Public Library interviewing candidates in the 2014 elections. We're interviewing Mr. John Weishan. He's a Democrat from West Dallas. He's running in the 15th Assembly District. John, welcome back to Wisconsin Eye.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation.
And a programming note, Wisconsin Eye appreciates the support of the Wisconsin Hospital Association, which represents more than 139 hospitals and health systems, for making these candidate interviews possible. John, before we get into specific issues, I want to ask about a couple things you say on your campaign website.
Sure.
And you criticize what you call special interest government. Could I ask you to elaborate on that, please?
Sure. Well, actually, one just has to open up your local newspaper anywhere in the state and see what I mean by local special interest campaign interests, whether it is the mining interests, putting in $700,000 secretively into Governor Scott Walker's campaign, or other issues, the United Sportsman issue that came up where they tried to give a special grant perpetually to inside group. Mm-hmm. And you just, this is a constant theme throughout this administration and the Republican Party, is that you have to be connected in some way.
Okay. You also are really critical of what you say was the state takeover of Milwaukee County's mental health programs. Can you put some context to that?
Sure. With the mental health takeover, what they did was empower the county executive, one individual in our community of 1 million people, to make decisions both budgetarily and program-wise when it comes to dealing with mental health, which is going to be a disaster.
Okay. Okay, let's talk about some issues that will be up in the next session, including in the next budget. Funding of public schools. Well, in your area, it's MPS. And how would you push to help MPS do a better job in the next state budget, sir?
Well, as it relates to the 15th district, the seat that I'm running for, it's the New Berlin School District and the Elm Grove and the West Dallas School District. So, you know, there are things that we can do, such as increasing the school funding aid. On that, we can promote programs like the SAGE program to make smaller class sizes. I think one of the most undercovered stories recently has been the effect on local school districts with the cutting of the SAGE program.
Okay, understand. A big issue in the next budget is whether to continue to expand vouchers and choice. Your position on that?
I do not support, and I have never have supported the voucher program here in Milwaukee or in across the state of Wisconsin. The fact is, it is a negative net loser for the school districts that are part of the 15th Assembly District.
Okay. In the next budget, then, would you shut it down entirely for all districts, including Milwaukee and?
Yes. One of the things that for 20 years, the voucher program has been in the city of Milwaukee, and there has been multiple studies done. It has been proven to be a failure, that it produces no better results than the current MPS system. And in fact, you know, when you look at some of the early studies when these storefronts were popping up, it was nothing but abuse of the taxpayers through graft and mismanagement. So replicating that system across the state is not a wise idea. Not only that, I look at the $500 million that have been spent over the last couple budgets on the voucher program, and I see that could have been used on your basic public schools statewide to improve services.
Okay. Recently, Governor Walker asked that the Assembly and Senate repeal or withdraw from the Common Core standards. Your position on that, sir?
Right. I don't support the Common Core standards. For different reasons, though, than the governor. I think that we are placing too much of an emphasis on just testing our kids rather than developing their research and their educational skills, the basics that you need to go on throughout your life to become a lifelong learner. What we're focusing on is just teaching the kids a test and then putting an immense amount of weight on those test scores. And what we've seen across the country where this has happened, you've had, whether it is administrators or others, then manipulate those numbers because they don't want to lose their job or their bonuses or be part of a failing school.
Okay, let's talk about transportation funding. The Zoo Freeway, which we all use, busiest intersection in the state, $1.7 billion price tag. Widening the freeway by Miller Park, Hone Bridge needs work. Yet the Taxpayers Alliance says that if you fund transportation at the 2013 levels for 10 years, there's a deficit of $2 billion. Is there a deficit? And if so, how would you recommend making it up?
Well, we always want to project as far into the future as we can so we can do adequate planning. But a lot of this rests on our Department of Transportation over-designing, I would say, and not looking at opportunities to design these things in a manner that's more cost-effective. When you put a freeway up in the air, it is more expensive, and it will be more expensive to maintain. It will be more expensive to construct. So, you know, there are opportunities that I think that through the design process that we could then reduce some of the costs. And this is not only just with the zoo interchange, but across the state.
Sure.
I've been amazed at some of the freeway construction around Green Bay, and it's going to be quite expensive 25 years from now when we have to rebuild those interchanges that they're constructing today.
Would you consider raising the sales tax or the $75 per vehicle that you and I pay to register our vehicle?
No, I think the gas tax that is in place today, the department has to live within its budget just like any other department. And the revenue that's generated by the gas tax should be adequate to provide us a transportation system. And that's one of the things, too, that I think we have to really expand and broaden our definition. Unfortunately, in Wisconsin, when we call it a transportation department, when really it functions just as a highway department. We're talking about the zoo interchange. We're not talking about other construction projects that would allow us to, instead of widening those freeways, put in a substitute form of transportation.
The concept of a RTA has been debated in Milwaukee County for many years. Is an RTA needed, John?
No, I believe the transportation function is handled well at the local level, at the county level. And in fact, across the state, county governments do quite well in managing their transportation needs. Their question, the answers that they need from the state are what funding mechanism are they actually going to be able to count on?
Okay, a question on health care. As you know, 1 in 5 Wisconsin residents get their health care through the Medicaid program. Mm-hmm. The American Hospital Association says Wisconsin's Medicaid reimbursement rates are second lowest in the nation. If you've studied the issue, do you think those rates should be increased in the next biennial budget?
Right. I can't say I've researched it intensely for this, but my understanding is, yes, that they do need to be increased, but this is part of a broader healthcare question that needs to be addressed. It's clear in Wisconsin's case that we need to accept the federal funding for the expansion of the Medicaid program, which is Badger Care here in the state. That has cost the state of Wisconsin hundreds of millions of dollars in needless costs. And not only that, people forget that healthcare is actually quite a job creator, and that in this time of people needing employment, accepting the federal money for the expansion of Badger Care would probably employ about 2,000 to 3,000 more people in the state.
I'm asking this question of all candidates from this area, from the metro area. The debate over a new arena for the Milwaukee Bucks. Should state taxpayers contribute to any new arena, sir?
No, and I think one of the things that you'll see is that I think that this needs to be a local discussion and a local solution. That the people involved in this enterprise are quite wealthy and quite creative and intelligent, and I think they can find a solution to their financial problems.
Okay. There will be a bill introduced that would legalize medical marijuana. This issue, of course, travels with the Colorado, state of Washington's now, which have legalized the recreational use of marijuana. Your positions on those issues?
I personally, I don't have a problem with that, legalizing marijuana. I think we, though, do have to take a greater stance on drugs in the state of Wisconsin. It's fine to legalize marijuana, but we also have to do that hand in hand with some of the greater enforcement on the harder drugs. We have a huge heroin epidemic that, unfortunately, as I've gone door to door in my district, I've run into some families that have had to deal with the issue. And so I believe that recreational use of marijuana is, I believe, on par with alcohol. In fact, there's far more deaths from alcohol than marijuana, if any. So, but we then have to use a common sense approach that other drugs are not the same as marijuana, and that we have to take a very vigorous approach on cracking down on things like heroin and cocaine.
On a related note, what's your position? Should first offense drunken driving be a crime?
No, and only because I think the way the system is set up today, and how it varies from person to person. I wish we had a system in place that we could, figure out before you got in your car, when you got in your car, that would tell you whether or not you're over the legal limit. Alcohol affects people so differently that I think that criminalizing it the first time is not in the best interest.
One of the first bills that passed the last session changed the rules so that Giebig Taconite could apply for that iron ore permit in Ashland and Iron counties. Do you know enough about the issue to know whether you would have voted for it?
I know enough about the issue, and I wouldn't have voted for it. And there's a couple basic reasons not to. One is a simple business reason. For all of those who say they support the mine, I don't know how they can support the bill that would authorize it or make it possible by taxing the profits of the company. This is a huge global corporation, and they will, through their different subsidiaries, make it look like they don't make any money from a mine in northern Wisconsin. It should be just like in Minnesota, it's the amount of tonnage that comes out, you pay a state tax. The other part is there has to be, regardless of your supporter, there has to be adequate support for the local government in the area. The roads and other utility costs that will be put on the local environment and the local community have to be compensated in an appropriate fashion. And then thirdly, the reason that I would vehemently oppose this is the environmental impact. We are putting, if you did a simple risk analysis, you're putting a multi-billion-dollar northern tourism industry, recreation industry at risk for potentially, a few $1 million in revenue to the state. And I think that, along with the negative health impacts and the impact to the environment, would make it a no-go.
Then finally, I want to give you a chance to highlight differences between you and your opponent, who used to serve on the county board with you on Election Day.
Well, number one, you'll see that I'm a person who's solution-driven, that my goal is to make Wisconsin a better state, not just for a few citizens that are well connected to me, but for all citizens of the state, whether you look at it on my education proposals, things that I would like to see done that a major difference are student loan relief, that I think that the state could put in place a financial loan program that would be a low-cost program, and then you would get a tax credit for every year that you live in the state to help you pay those student loans. Another major reform that I would like to see is reform of the Public Service Commission. Right now it's a 3-member board, and what I'd like to see is that expanded to a 7-member board, and then have the governor sign off on any major project or rate increase over 1 or 2%. And that would put that back in control of the citizens, that when you look at the kitchen table issues that I've talked to people about, they're telling me that they're having a difficult time paying the electric bill, that things have gotten out of control, that student loan debt has gotten out of control. So what you'll see from me is solutions for the actual working people of Wisconsin and not just a few inside players.
Thank you. Milwaukee County Supervisor John Weishan of West Dallas is a Democratic candidate in the 15th Assembly District. The election is November 4. John, thanks for talking to Wisconsin Eye. Thank you.